Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and aliens, if you're tuning in. It's 7 p.m. Pacific time, and what does that mean? It's Pixels, Plastic, and Ink here on the Shadow Nose Network. And if you're listening or watching, you probably have a strong interest in aliens, and specifically probably the best alien franchise of all time. Yes, tonight's episode is all about aliens, from Ridley Scott's first film all the way through to now Alien Romulus, that comes out with all these amazing reviews. We're going to talk through it all, the franchise, toys, comic books, where they did it right, where they did it wrong, and then a debate. Is it a horror film or is it a sci-fi film? We're going to get into the thick of things. Just remember, when you're watching, avoid the face huggers. This is Pixels, Plastic, and Ink. Well. Here we are again, back together on a Friday night. And doesn't it feel like more folks are joining us on a Friday night? Not just you, chat, and the fans and the listeners and the viewers, but lots more podcasts popping up on Friday nights, man. But I love the company. Take a seat. Come on in. We're going to make this a big PPI party. How are you all doing this Friday?
Good.
Doing great, brother. Doing great, man. A good week. A lot of great things that happened and everything. We've had 2 great Toybox Chronicles over the last couple of weeks, so looking forward to the Pixel Plastic Neat Friday.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of imitation being a form of flattery. In my history, it's happened multiple times. Rad remembers. So, jump in on Fridays. Go ahead, but you'll never do it as good.
Yeah, I mean, maybe one day they'll look back and just like the Monday Night Wars, WCW versus WWF, there'll be another episode. But hey, we're all friendly. We're all getting along. We got brothers and sisters out there. Sarlacc Digest as one amazing crew. Done tons of joint casts with them, and all is welcome to share the love on Friday nights. And if that means stepping on some toes, well, it is what it is. But
just remember that we're like Vince McMahon, so we're probably going to buy you out.
Yeah, but just be careful, because I don't want to be just like Vince McMahon after what's maybe pre the last incident. Yeah. Let's just clarify. But let's jump right into things. Ladies and gentlemen, you are here for one reason, and one reason is that in my humbled opinion, and can't wait to get you all's opinion, it is by far the best alien franchise and some of the best sci-fi / horror films, and we're going to get through it. As I kicked off the top of the show, I'm super excited to jump through it. And before we go any further, please subscribe, like, comment. We appreciate the questions, chat. Let's jump right into it. This is Alien.
Game over, man. It's game
from her, you bitch!
The bitch is back. Woo-wee.
Now, let me tell you, working in the trailer business, that was a hilarious line, because if you didn't see the other movie,
Yeah.
you're just like, what? Are they calling Sigourney Weaver a bitch? What kind of movie is this? The bitch is back. Yes.
It's wow. I don't know if you also have you seen the red band trailer of Alien Romulus. It was attached
Yes.
to I think most of the Deadpools. That was mind blowing. It was way better than I
Yeah.
saw like some of the online stuff. And then you could watch it obviously on YouTube now. And now it's getting incredible reviews. And so before we get into the history of the franchise and talk about all the different films that's transpired and the overlaps, so far so good. This was hyped. It was right initially going to go just exclusively to Hulu at one point,
Yeah.
as I recall, and then they were like, whoa, we got something on our hands here. And then it gets an August release, which is nuts. Rave reviews, practical effects, like everyone's saying that this is it's resurrecting the franchise. So what are your thoughts on Romulus coming out? Are you all excited like I am?
Yes, I can't wait for it. I love Aliens is in my like top 5 movies of all time. I love it. Alien is a great movie, but I can rewatch Aliens all day, every day. That's why it was very disappointing when Ridley Scott came back to the franchise. I did not really like his 2 additional movies. In the theater, it was very disappointing. But this sounds good. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
Well, now there's no chance of Ridley Scott ever joining the show. Thank you, Dr. Bentley.
Well, because he was right there. He was right there.
No,
but...
it's too late. He already slandered the man's name and everything. He won't be showing up now.
Okay,
I
you
think
watch
that
Alien Covenant and tell me it's good.
if Ridley Scott's coming on, I'll tell him that. I think it is probably one of the better series. Just look, 3 gets a lot of flack, but 3 had its great moments. I think there was a little bit of studio intervention and some of that, but the actors, Charles Dutton, there's a lot of great acting in that. It's just a completely different departure. I think every one of the Alien films seems like it's a departure away from any of the films or the most successful film that worked. And so it's like we get like a different Alien film every time. This looks like it's taking a lot of the old throwbacks to the practical effects, yet also it seems like it's written well. The only thing that worries me is that Mr. Scott did give his endorsement to it. So that's one or the other at this moment. We don't know how to take that, but I think I think the franchise is probably one of the better ones. Look, a lot of people slammed the Aliens versus Predator. I waited years to see that. And yeah, they're cheesy. And I think that the second one is not up to par. The first one's okay. But at least when it comes to action, that's probably the closest that we've gotten to the Aliens film is the first Alien versus Predator, where there's a lot more action than people standing around talking. So, I'm hoping this one, it seems like it's a space heist film or something. I'm hoping that the action works itself out, but I hope the storyline also works as well. So we'll see how it is, but it looks promising right now.
Chet, what's your thoughts?
I am excited to see this movie for one very specific reason. And that was because I learned how much practical effects were added to this movie. And I think that I think if you go back and kind of like what Dr. Burnley was saying about like Aliens, I mean, there's a lot of practical effects on that, and anytime you know if you ever watched like anything that had to do with like Jim Henson Studios, and then you watched like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles the movie, the live action one, the turtles were all practical effects, and I still to this day, if they didn't decay, those would do better in a movie today than they did back in the because they still look good on screen. And so what I'm excited about this Aliens is that like there is practical effects, and I get that there's CGI stuff too, but when you can make a film and film practical effects and make it look scary, I feel like it just does something more to your brain. I don't know if you guys I guess what I could really explain is like if you guys remember, because we're all old enough to remember, when TV started getting like crazy high refresh rates, where like we were all used to like tube TVs, like regular whatever refresh rate. It was kind of like a cinematic feel, right? Then it was like, oh, this TV has 240 hertz, and it's like, well, now it just looks now this same movie just looks dumb. I remember going back and watching Godfather, or no, Scarface, and it was like the movie didn't look the same because the refresh rate was so high. It just took me out of the film. It was like, dude, I just feel like I'm on the camera dolly, like zoning down in. And so when you add practical effects to movies and you make it mesh well, I think that it does something to your brain to captivate you into the movie, where you're just like, wait, was that real? Was that not? Like, what is this? So I'm excited for it. I think, I think it's going to do really well. I do. I don't think it's going to do Deadpool well, but I think it's going to do really well.
I don't think it won't touch Deadpool, but I think it will. To your point, they said no green screens, and I think if you're going to make this genre of a film, you want the actors to get scared, and it's hard to do that via green screen or like, okay, this is going to be the xenomorph, my hand here, so I want you to be scared, but this freaking practical, this thing coming out of the space wall dripping saliva, you're like, holy like there's something to that. So if there's going to be a movie that you use that type of approach, it's this. And clearly, like the reviews coming in, I sent something like a little excerpt of some editor at Variety said like it gave him nightmares because of the practical effects, and like that's an alien film, man. Like that's what you want, right? The reason why Jurassic Park was so good, they're CGI, but like the close up shots, the kids, it was a dinosaur, man, and they did so well kind of seeing some of those things. So I'm excited about that. I love that they didn't use green screens, like practical effect, like that makes the total sense for these movies. I'm wondering in past movies how much of it was green screen CGI, and outside of some of the storyline issues and some of the acting things, that could have been part of the problem. Because if I look back at some of the more recent takes, and obviously the Alien versus Predator movies, it's just an abundance of CGI, and it's just so hard. I mean,
well, the first two movies, there wasn't with the aliens. That was all practical.
Yep.
The guys in suits, and they very carefully edited and shot all those things, and lighting especially on those aliens. You can do great stuff with it. Especially like in Aliens, how they were blending into all of the walls and everything, and then you didn't notice anything until they started to move. That was creepy as hell in a dark theater. But Alien 3, the way they did that creature was they had little puppet of it, and they moved it in front of a green screen, and then they just erased the rods and then put it into the scene. But that's why it didn't look like it was actually in there with the actors running around. It kind of looked CG, but it wasn't. It was just a puppet put into the scene with them.
That's awesome. I'm curious, and I didn't look at like the background magic of this film, but the face huggers, jumping through the water and stuff. Obviously, like it's so Scott. I wonder how they did that, because that's another thing. All the actors are sitting in water, and these freaking spider-looking aliens are jumping out and all that shit. I'm like, I don't care what kind of actor you are, like, fucking creepy. Like, this is awesome. So again, going back to like this director's commitment to like, nope, we're gonna go back to the 79. We're gonna take it back in this way, and we got so much better technology to pull it off think that's the reason why it's going to be scary as hell, man. Like people are going to be gripping their seats. It's awesome.
Well, I think too, like if you're gonna get in, if you, I would be curious to do. No, Romulus is out on the 15th, is when the first showings I think are.
But just the reviews are come out, like all the sneak peeks and stuff. People are just like, it's nuts.
Yeah, so I think I would be curious to do a deep dive on like the practical effects team on this movie, because if I was going to do a practical effects movie, you almost have to go back and hire the old school crew, right? Like all the men and women that did practical effects when CGI was so bad you couldn't use it. Those are the people that understood how to make the camera see it in real life, right? And so I will probably do the deep dive and figure out like, okay, these practical effects, like the head of practical effects and the head of whatever, like what did they work on before? Because if the practical effects are that good, like I'm sorry, but I don't really know if a lot of new cats could hang and do it the way they did in the old days.
See, this is where I'll disagree with my Toybox Chronicle partner. Is that I've seen a lot of younger individuals dating back, watching the older films, and actually running a lot of these guys that are in film school now are running practical effects because it's an homage to some of the older films. So I do think there's a generation of people that, because it's the whole retro throwback. Look, I think it's incredibly smart to go back to practical effects. One, it's going to save you a lot more money than having 150 people CGI something. So you got to think the practical effects is going to save the studio money. Two is that actors, unless you're extremely like a really great actor, it's hard to act with ping pong balls or green screens. But when something's at you or something, it's real, it makes you like go back to old school ways of acting with something in the actual shot with you. So I think it's, again, incredibly smart. I think it's cost effective. I think this is not the last time we're going to see practical effects. I think a lot of Hollywood studios will go back, because when you look at things like The Mandalorian and all the digital screens and everything, those aren't cheap productions. You know, they're starting to get skyrocketing. So how can you save money and get good things back in? All horror needs to have practical effects in it.
Well, and even The Mandalorian, using that giant digital display behind him, it still looked really good.
Oh no, yeah, it looks
was
great.
cheaper than It was cheaper than moving everybody on site when they could just build it. And so, but that, and in my opinion, that's just it's kind of like crossing that same realm of like practical effects. I mean, it's literally a giant screen, and they can do what they want to do. And I mean, I think the days of like painting your apartment blue and filming in it are kind of going,
And I think it's more important with like a horror piece.
Yeah,
like it's important in all films, don't get me wrong, but I think there's some element like you want to read the fear in these actors' eyes. And I don't I don't care if you're, freaking Marlon Brando, like there's only so much you can do, but you see this freaking creature pop out of the water, man. There's a little bit of like, this is kind of creepy here, dark water. You still got the film crew behind you, which leads me to my next point, which is there's always been this argument about, is Alien the franchise, is it a sci-fi franchise or a horror? And before I let you all answer, I'm not a horror aficionado. Like I've watched a bunch of horror films. There's different pockets, genres of horror. You've got the slasher films, you got the super gory ones, you've got the jump scare ones, you got your classics, whatever. So I'm not going to sit here and say I've seen them all and I don't know what's scary, but I have seen quite a few, and I can name a couple of them that were really freaking scary. But in my opinion, nothing has been scarier than the first two Alien films, in my opinion. And maybe because I saw them at a younger age, but I think they still hold up. And so I think for myself, after those two, it may have taken more of a sci-fi spin. But I think the original two, in my opinion, were a hell of a lot more horror than they were sci-fi. So I'm going to pass it to Dr. Brantley, the Alien guy. What's your take? And then we'll get everyone's thoughts here.
Well, I mean, it started out as just a straight horror. It was a haunted house movie in space.
Yeah.
And that was just the whole point of it. And what I love about Aliens is it takes it to a whole different genre and kicks ass at that genre. So I was thinking you can do pretty much any type of movie, and like this one, it looks like it's a heist movie, and you insert aliens into this thing. So it's like you can have all these different types of movies inside of an alien movie. And then that's just a catalyst for when things go wrong, they go really wrong because everyone's dying.
Yeah. They also what I like about Aliens is they also spawned one of the scariest video games I've ever played in my life. And it was Alien Isolation. But I played it when I was at I think it was E3. Meeks, if you're on here, you would know. But they had in this convention, you could wait in line and you got to play Alien Isolation, but you played it inside a giant egg. Like you went in, you sat down, you put on the VR goggles, you played it in VR, but everything was pitch black and it was like crazy sound, and then the egg just shut and you played and you would walk by that thing. And you would just hear people screaming like, let me out, let me out. And then it's like, to date, like that game is still super creepy. And so I mean I think that depending on the alien movie you're watching, it's sci-fi or horror. I think it all just depends.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on Alien Isolation,
Mhm.
I have played that, and you would think that a game where it's like essentially you're just walking from room to room
Oh,
and looking for stuff, you'd think this would be boring. But because of the lighting and the sound, it is one of the most tense things like ever. Like
Yeah.
you hear things and you like start to look around your own room, and it is very frightening. And if you have the lights off,
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
creepy.
And I'll say that 20th Century Fox did it two times, and I think they did the bending of genres extremely well, where it was either action or sci-fi and adding the horror aspect. I think like the first Predator movie is right up there because it's action, yet it blends in the sci-fi element, and it works extremely well. And that jungle is a really bad environment to run through. And the same thing, I think Ridley Scott did a great job in the first film of having, like, it's a piece where it's a slow burn, but it gets you there, and when it does, it moves extremely well. Then there's James Cameron's Aliens that just seemed like the minute it just started hitting the screen, it was going at full throttle. So I think they've done that extremely well. I don't think too many other genres have blended it that way. I think they try. It hasn't happened. Even with the Aliens versus Predator, they couldn't get the tone down of that in the same way that the other films were. So it's not Meeks is right too. And actually I just saw that too. Predator 2 as well. Let's put it like this. The first one's great, but I do love me some Danny Glover in that movie, man.
Yeah.
Especially whenever you see a Jamaican walking around in the Predator, you're like, okay, it works. But then again, it's the other film's tones, like the Robert Rodriguez directed Predator. He couldn't get the tone right. It's Ridley Scott even came back, couldn't get the tone right. I'm really hoping that this film can blend that point where it's like, there's the scare factor, yet also you can obviously see the sci-fi because they're, in a, up above the world on some towers and everything else. That looks kind of cool. So you can see that I think this film will blend a lot more sci-fi with it, because you've got to believe that Earth is in a different scenario, that they're like, the resources are going and everything. There's all those kind of world building elements that you can see in the actual trailers. So, I think that there's a lesson. I think Prey did it extremely well. Another one where it's action and it had a little bit of the sci-fi horror-ish kind of thing. So let's see if these directors can keep this going. But I think those are the two franchises that you can really do that in. It's hard to do that in the other ones.
Do you think the xenomorph is the scariest alien ever created amongst all alien type movies?
That and the Predator, yeah. Like I said, every time I see the both of them, it's first of all, the look is fantastic. You've got the H.R. Giger along with Stan Winston, which is also responsible for the other one as well.
Mm-hmm.
When you see those aliens, first of all, it is like Chet was saying, the practical effects. When you look at an alien queen, it feels like it's in the frame with you, and it looks great. That's the scary factor of it. When you see the Predator in a scene, he looks like he's really in the scene when he takes off the mask and everything like that. I remember sitting in the theater like, what the, it was completely shocking. And at the same time, you're like, there's no way Arnold Schwarzenegger can beat this guy. So
but
it works.
The designs are unsettling. That's the main thing, is you see like all these ribs and these things on the back of them and the long head. And it wasn't until the toy that I could actually see that underneath the carapace of the alien, there's actually a skull underneath there. And you don't notice that when you actually see it in the movie, just the way it's shot. But every now and then you get a glimpse, but it's the toy that really freaked me out more than anything, because there's a little skull under there and it doesn't look good.
Well, it's also the acid in the blood. It's like there's certain things, like if you want a perfect killing machine, is if you cut it, it can harm you at the same time. This thing, if you look at Aliens 3, it was one of the first time we saw it was able to adapt into something else. Because when it was harvesting and I think a dog in that movie or something, kind of, what? Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, Red just made me just realize one thing: The Thing, John Carpenter's. If there's a third film that blended that well and scared the crap out of me, it was The Thing. Because when they're sitting in that room and they do that alien person, I remember as a kid that freaked me the hell out too. So, you got to give it right. Ridley Scott, the James Cameron and John Carpenter did that the best. But that's it just came to my mind right now as we were talking about this.
Isn't it funny that was like probably one of the first like franchises and films where you had like a badass female character like take on this, like it's really in two, right? It's Terminator and it's Alien, where you saw like they weren't afraid, both wearing like wife beaters and just badass and scars, and like that's kind of cool because we didn't really see that until those films hit. So it was awesome to see, and both of them taking on these supernatural cyborg aliens. So it
wasn't even designed that way. If you look at that first Alien film, you don't know who the main character is until a good portion of that film. Then the Wrigley character comes out of nowhere and controls that movie. And I think it's just the point where she wouldn't let them in the airlock. And that's when it's kind of like established, like, wait a minute, this is the main character. So I think they did a really good job. But in that second movie, we all know who's controlling that movie. And we've already, if you saw the first one, this is the character when they bring that character back. But I think it's incredibly, same thing in the Terminator film too. Like, they do a good build up to these characters. At first, they don't seem like heroes or the actual main characters, and then somehow they build them in a character, and you go through that journey with them. Incredibly smart filmmaking and writing.
In the first Alien, Ripley is the only smart character. Everyone else does stupid shit.
Well, that's why she lives.
But every time she says stuff, and at the beginning it's in the background, she's just saying, like, yeah, that's no, and it's like, shouldn't do this.
And don't you think the Aliens was like the first film, or Alien was the first film that taught us, like, at one point or another, like, synthetic life or AI is going to be a problem for us?
Well, I think 2001 did that.
That did kind of too, but that was a little bit more deceptive. It wasn't walking around the ship with you.
This was like the first Megan. You
Yeah,
know?
this like that one was the one where you're like, well, what the hell is that? You know, or again, I think it still has. If you have the top 100 scenes in all the films, when they're at the dinner table, if there's a person that lived in our like decades that didn't get the hell shocked out of them and couldn't go to sleep that night, because that scene is still riveting, and you're like, wow, they did a fantastic job with that, man. You know.
When I saw it the first time, I busted out laughing because I thought it looked hilarious as it was running across the table. Like bursting out of the chest, that was a
That was
little
scary.
traumatic. But once it was running across the table, I started laughing. And my sister and my babysitter were both screaming, but I thought it was funny looking.
Well, what's the epic scene in Spaceballs? Don't they do
Hello, my darling.
where he guys got the top hat and stuff? It's amazing. I'm glad that the franchise seems to be back on track. We will definitely see for ourselves on how good this is, but all things are pointing in the right direction. I think these space marines and they haven't figured out wherever there's like broken eggs, don't go near, and where there's water, don't go near. I don't understand why there's something that, why are you marching through water? And I would never understand it, but I guess that goes back to the horror themes of just like, oh, we're in a cabin with no power and we're gonna walk around the lake. Oh, look, it's a shed with axes. Let's go check it out. So
A lot of horror does depend on stupid characters doing stupid things.
Always, yeah, always.
Mhm.
If they were smart, they wouldn't be in that situation in the first place.
Yeah. What's the worst film in the franchise? And let's take Alien and Predator out of there, the AVPs or whatever. Like, let's just stick to the Alien, and then obviously there was, Covenant. There's Prometheus. We can consider those. What's the worst?
Prometheus is pretty bad.
I think Aliens 4 is just
Resurrection.
Is that what it was? Sorry, yeah.
I tried to erase that from my memory, and you just brought it back in.
I think that's probably
was that 4 or was that like 3.5?
Yeah, well, that was probably the worst one there. That movie made no sense, and I think it also had Winona Ryder in it as well. Like it just made no sense for them to actually do that film, and it took a long time. I think that was kind of like the Batman and Robin. It just killed the franchise, and then they had to wait for some time for that dust to settle before they did anything else. That's exactly what it was.
I think it's Covenant, just because with what we had Danny McBride and James Franco captaining the ship. There was a lot of bad choices being made.
It's like all you needed was Seth Rogen, and they're like, just smoking weed, and it's like Spaceballs too. Do we think the ship that are trying to steal from the ship is Crash original film? Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That could
actually.
I don't know. Is it a prequel in a sense? I don't know. I didn't read.
It's actually. No, it takes place between the first and the second movie, so it's in that 57
Okay, so yeah,
years.
that could have been that ship. Yeah,
but yeah, if they're stealing stuff from it, or
well, you've got to think
like
if it's a heist film and it's like some special cargo or something else like that, that would seem to be the key point. I think that's extremely smart linking it. Look, link it to the best two films. Prometheus tried that, and it just I think he just went. I think. Like Ridley Scott tried to make a thinking science fiction horror film, and it worked in '79. And I think the audience's attention spans and everything, it's just that's not going to work for what the actual series kind of involved into. And it's the same way we're going to see in a couple of months if he does the same thing happens when he takes on Gladiator. Is it just because you let too much time go and then you try to go back to it? And it's just the public and the views change and the director didn't. We'll see.
Yep. Yeah. Scott, I said that in the theater. I was like, go that way. Go that way. What are you doing? What are you doing?
What's disappointing is I thought Prometheus had really great potential too.
I did. Yes.
That was the disheartening part because there was like elements of that film that were actually really cool. But it was just like, I don't know, maybe to your point, Alex, it may have, like, you try to overthink. I don't know. But I was so interested in the origins piece because there was some of it where it was like, oh, that's cool, right? Like you could see like the first man and like, oh, but it just didn't come together. And some of the actor choices too. The casting was a bit off, and some of the folks that they put in those roles. I don't know what happened there, but I don't know. We haven't seen some of those folks since, so that should tell you how well their acting performance was received.
Well, did you see that one in 3D?
No.
So I took my dad was always a fan of like all Alien franchises. Like he would admit that they were bad, but he's like, I'm still gonna go watch them in the theater because he just liked it. And so he wanted to see Prometheus in 3D. So I took him, and the part where they're in the ship and they activate it and then all that stuff like comes up. That was really well done because in 3D it was very good. The rest of the movie, however, I'm not really sure about, but there were some standout parts too. But I think Prometheus had such potential and just didn't and it didn't make it.
Yeah, because it looks beautiful. It's Ridley Scott knows how to shoot a movie, so every shot looks great. That's why it's so disappointing because that's the first one I think that they didn't try and make it a horror movie. They and if they had just embraced it a little bit more, this whole origin and getting into it, but it seemed like they kind of chickened out. They kind of half did some stuff, and they didn't fully commit to their ideas.
There's 3 points about Prometheus I think that really hurt. The first 5 minutes of the film was like boring as shit. And you sat there and it was like the whole origin and how this all started and everything else like that. So it was almost more like a religious ideology that he tried to throw about the making of man and everything in that part. So we're sitting there like this doesn't kind of par with what we've seen before. And I think the other reveal was they did kind of like another Wayland kind of version where he comes out of deep hibernation out of nowhere. And he's like, I just went, and you're like, oh, okay, wait a minute, man. It's like, it has so many of tropes from the other films that this is supposed to be a prequel, but yet it seemed like you just took a bunch of other stuff and said, I could do it better than these other guys. And I think just Ridley Scott was just out of touch. And, that's what happens with a person who comes back to a piece, almost 30 years from when he originally touched it. It's not a lot of good results happen with that at times.
I think the other thing that's missing too is like agrees Scott, like with Star Wars there is like I don't have to say this, but a massive lore, right? And with these Alien there isn't that, right? There's like, I don't know, I mean, even the most diehards, and Dr. Brantley, you could probably speak the best on that, there's some of it, but they had the opportunity to create this like mega universe in a sense with different characters. It could have been a Star Trek type of feel, and yet like the movies were so disconnected that there's not an opportunity to do that. I'm wondering maybe with this film they can carry that on, create some cool characters over time. I don't know if they all die off or whatever, we'll see, but the only constant has been the xenomorph in the face of the aliens. But like, give us some humans, give us like some more like understanding of the universe itself. That's what I would ask, because like we're desperate for a new franchise, and if it's sci-fi horror mix, I'm all for it. There's not much left out there right now.
Well, I think the thing that kills the entire series is that they did a better job in some of the Dark Horse books and everything else like that of building the lore up, and it seemed to be ignored by the actual film franchise. And I think they relied too heavily on Ripley after a while. It's just like, let's just keep doing it. It's like, look, I think that it was a great character that you used a couple of times, and then you overused it. And so it became like a crutch. And I think that they have to work on like the same way with the Prey series. Look, when we heard that was going to be in theaters and then it was going directly to Hulu, you were like, oh my God, this is probably not going to be good, because they decided not to put it in the theater. And yet it was a very good version of the Predator. And it had a little bit of similarity lore, but not. And yet it explains certain things in the prequel wise that we see later down the line. I think they have the opportunity, if it's between 1 and 2, then that's the best time in the alien lore, and you've got a really good chance to bring in other characters that we haven't seen that's not Ripley, or you can reintroduce Ripley as another younger actor or something and start at a different point. You can do whatever you want. There's a lot of openness to it, so we can see and they can change things.
Mm-hmm.
I think they need to get away from Ripley. It's like
I think so
her
too, but
story is told. They should have
but
done
they
it
could if
after
they
the
want
third
to.
one.
Yeah.
Because when they did the third, they didn't know if she was going to come back or not. So they had a bunch of different people writing different scripts. And like one of them was David Twohy, who did the Pitch Black series, and that was a rejected Alien story. So he just sort of rewrote some of it, redid the lore behind it, and did that. I read one. It was one of the worst scripts I've ever read, but someone made it was going to be a space station that looked like the Midwest. So all you saw was like cornfields and stuff. And only if they like panned the camera up a little bit could you like see a dome or something into space. So it was a bunch of rednecks in space on a space station with pickup trucks and cornfields, and aliens got loose. So it was just dumb.
Well, now I know where M. Night Shyamalan got his idea of the alien
Exactly.
cornfield from. He must have read the same shit script that you did
Was
and
that-
incorporated that in his film.
Was that Rebel Moon 3? Did I miss that?
Rebel Moon 3.
Well, the funny thing about that is that I actually will disagree with Dr. Bentley about that being the worst script. There was a script that we were asked to rewrite.
Oh, well,
that
that doesn't count.
That counts. That's the worst. It was called, and I'll give out the title because I don't think they made the film, so we can give away. But it was My Dream Wedding, and I swear to God, 5 pages into this script, I knew it was never going to get made, and I was like, I don't care how much money they're paying. I don't want to do this.
I don't think we can even fix this.
Was it a xenomorph gets married to a
it
predator?
It would have made the movie better if that would have happened.
Oh my goodness!
Turns out it was My Big Fat Greek Wedding. So
yeah. Marketing. So we've seen the popcorn buckets galore with Deadpool, and we've seen the popcorn bucket. Have you all seen the viral stuff of like the face huggers with the dudes passed out in the middle of the AMC lobby with the popcorn spilled? I mean, they were doing a fantastic job.
It is.
I love the thing that they sent out, the VHS copy of the trailer a couple of weeks ago before Comic-Con. I'm interested to see if they're going to re-release toys, but I think they've done a fantastic job in marketing efforts. These film studios are crushing it now, man. Like kudos to them. But I think along with the great reviews has been this prelude to this film centered around some of the creative marketing tactics here. So toys. This obviously we talk about toys. We got Toybox Chronicles, Mr. Storm and Mr. Maddox. So lots of alien toys. I thought we would just spend a couple of minutes talking about toys because I think we all have a variety of different toys of the past. And there you go right there. Then is that the NECA version of the Panther alien?
Yeah, with magnetic attack parasites. We were going to possibly give this away tonight, but we're not sure yet.
Wow.
Look at that.
Now, I will say, in what better 1992 as a child, what better way to reward the younger youth than a face hugger, right? Like this is look at that. I mean, it's just wonderful toy. It's a perfect birthday gift. So as Dr. Brantley was saying, his babysitter was horrified. He's watching the film. What happened to the toys of the old days where they were so family friendly? The King Alien versus the Polly Pockets. What happened? What's going on in the world today?
Well, and the reason that this whole Kenner line came out was because they were thinking about doing a cartoon of the Space Marine aliens story. Yep. It's like, if after you do Rambo and RoboCop, I suppose Aliens seems perfectly fine.
Although out of the two, Rambo was probably a better animated cartoon than RoboCop was. And I think the Space Marines probably wouldn't be back because I do remember they had what was the I'm trying to think. They did the Space Marines, but it was the other ones from the what's the Bug film.
Starship Troopers.
Starship Troopers. They did a version of that was like, I guess, half animation, half CGI years later. But look, marketing is marketing. I think it's, they were gonna beat a dead horse in. They didn't know what was gonna work. Look, I remember they had the RoboCop out there, the same with the caps and everything else like that. So they were trying everything against the wall. Like Kenner at the end of the Kenner's run was like, well, what are we going to do? For God's sakes, we got to keep the doors open. Let's just grab a franchise.
Yeah. Well, that's what's frustrated about it. So if you look at the back of the card,
yeah,
they've got all the Space Marine figures, and it like really never took off. Like I remember, like no one was collecting the Space Marines. You all wanted the alien, right? Because there wasn't.
Well, they all died in the movie, man.
Yeah, so it's like, and I think there's an opportunity maybe to like build out. I know the Space Marines are part of like Warhammer at this point, but look at that, man. Yeah. That's epic.
Mm-hmm. And then this guy, Atax, he has a like that's alien suit.
That's a good toy.
He can get in.
Only Dr. Brentley went deep into that line, brother.
But that's what we want.
Indiana Jones.
That's like what I want, though.
The toy stock market, that's not rising in price, bro.
We got Bishop and Ripley as well,
Oh, look at that, man. That's
the Ripley might go. The Ripley
you know what's crazy is that Kenner owned a majority of our childhoods.
Oh yes.
I mean, if you just think about I love Mask. It's Kenner. It's all Kenner. The Star Wars, that was all Kenner. Aliens is all Kenner. Like there's just not another brand that is that impactful and had that many licenses and did it well for the time.
I think they also didn't they do the real Ghostbusters as well?
They did.
Yeah. So yeah. Well,
and they did Batman.
Mm-hmm. They were just blessed at a time period, but I think their model was a little skewed on the aspect where they were going after licensing. And when you're doing licensing and you don't really have an actual I don't even think they really owned Mask, right? I think that was the original line, but I don't think they really owned that either. I think I think Deke or somebody else owned that.
Yeah,
so
I think it was a French license.
I think if they would have had their own, like the way Hasbro has like G.I. Joe, that's theirs. I think that probably would have saved Kenner. But when you're doing licensing, you're paying off to the licensee. You don't make money on the line. That money better go to the people at the first of the month. You got a problem. So
and then
but I think they did a great job.
A lot of those companies, though, in the 80s also did disastrous toy lines.
Yes.
So you're mass producing stuff for Dune, and it's like, ooh, that didn't take off. It's like, oops, Buck Rogers. It's like they made stuff, Battlestar Galactica. They made those toys, but people didn't buy them. Clash of the Titans, people didn't buy them.
Well, Battlestar Galactica is still not selling.
Real quick, just so people don't think that we don't know what we're talking about. We got to correct ourselves here. Mask was developed by Kenner in '85 with an animated television series. So it was actually owned by.
So they did own that one series, and
Kenner,
then that series went they did. I remember the first season went well for them. And then they did that second season where whoever came up with the race car ideas murdered that line for them.
Yeah.
So but it happens.
So incredible marketing. Like we'll see if I don't think there'll be a massive toy line. This looks super gory and horror film. So if anything, it'll be like, adult themed. I don't think we'll see, peg hooks at Target full of like the beheaded Space Marine or the whatever. I
think NECA has a good opportunity.
Yeah, they could.
If they really wanted to make a lot of those, because I've seen certain characters they've done, but maybe they'll look. I don't know if they've ever done Danny Glover as a figure from that line or any of that, but it would be interesting to see if NECA would put out some of those other outliers. It would be kind of cool.
Yeah. I agree. We talked about Alien Isolation as a video game, and then you mentioned Starship Troopers. I don't know if anybody's played, but one that's been recent, I think it came out maybe 2-3 years ago, is called Alien Fire Team.
I
don't know,
did
Chet,
play that.
you remember
I
that
have.
where you play, it's multiplayer, and you just on
Yeah.
the ship and you kill a bunch of aliens everywhere, face
Mhm.
all that stuff. So that's, if you're a fan of the franchise, again, that's kind of like a Starship Troopers-esque. You're just blowing away all these aliens and trying to rescue your friends. But again, it's a perfect opportunity to continue to make legendary games again, because
Well,
it's action packed and it's scary as hell.
I think that was on all platforms too, right?
I don't know if all, but I definitely PC and probably the major consoles.
Maybe that's one.
Yeah.
I know we have our other channel on Twitch or something. So maybe we should just all for one night,
Just play it.
get the fire team out and let's do the
Hey.
Pixel Plastic Ink fire team.
There you go.
Maybe we do that. Maybe we'll get Scott to pop in one night with us too.
I love it. Well, I'm still waiting for we all should be playing what's the Star Wars one? Battle what's the
Battlefront.
what's the last? Is it Battlefront 2 is the last one that they did?
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved playing that when that first came out.
Oh yeah, I spent way too much time doing that because
Yeah.
it's cool. It's fun to shoot blasters and murder stormtroopers.
Dr. Brentley got me to
in.
play that game, and I swear to God, I think we played together. That was the hardest damn game. It's like gotta look up and everything. I was like, Jesus Christ, man! It just becomes too much. And yeah, actually, Scott's right. Outlaws did come out and everything. So that we might have to just throw up some consoles and everything, get those sticks firing. We got the master of the sticks, Meek, somewhere out there. So,
well, let's not forget one of the greatest video games of all time. We're not talking Alien, we're talking Star Wars. We do have Scott Solo on here in the chat, but Knights of the Old Republic. I mean, talk about legendary, still replayable. Graphics not up to par, but it doesn't matter, man. It's so good. I thought they were gonna redo that or make a new version of it, but I think whatever the studio was working on, I don't know if it was EA or somebody, but LucasArts, I don't know, something happened that's been in the making for some time. I don't know, Meek, if you know Meeks, or or Chet, either way, that sucks. Yeah, 1 and 2 exactly.
Yeah,
it got canceled. Man, that sucks because that was.
Oh,
man,
I don't know.
I
if
love
it's
that
because of the new stuff that they're doing in the Star Wars universe. It's like, well, now we've got to make sure everything is going to be in line, so we can't just have these stories without making sure that everything is in line, because they're really known for that.
I'm indifferent about Outlaws. I've heard some real bad things about it, so I don't know. We need a really good Star Wars game, but we also need a really good Aliens game outside of Isolation.
We do. I'm telling you.
Maybe one where you run around as a xenomorph.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
You have to get people and put them in, cocoon them, make sure they get face huggered.
Well, just go
protect the queen.
But there's a video game now where you run around with like you're either like Jason or you're like some of the, and you go and try to kill
I've
people,
seen that one.
right? What is that called, Chet? Where
I think they did Friday the 13th.
8 other people. No, but you play other bad people. So maybe you could be a xenomorph and like the multiplayers are trying to like escape the ship before you're like put into a cocoon.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Dead by Night, is that I think it's
Dead by Daylight.
Something like that, whatever. But
yeah, there was another really big game that was called Evolve, which
there you go,
Dead by Daylight.
Yeah, Dead by Daylight. There's another big video game that was called Evolve that would have actually been a really good Aliens game, and what it was it was like a 4-on-1. And if you were the monster, you got like a head start and you could like learn the map, and then your goal was to kill the other 4 players. And that launched a lot of games, and I always was of the point of where this should have been an Alien game, because you could have picked your like space commanders from Aliens, and then you run around as different versions and different evolutions of the xenomorph. Would have been an epic game. I remember paying $100 for that game, and then them telling me like we're not supporting it anymore after 3 months. So that was great.
Patty chimed in and said would love to watch a live play. Again, we're thinking about doing it, but if we have to do something like that, we've got to bring the Master of the Sticks Meeks in with us as well.
We should do.
I will probably die first, just to let you know. I will probably die first.
Well, that's what we'll do.
Golden Thumbs Meeks.
We'll do a Battlefront one, and then we'll do an Alien Fire Team, and we'll see if we can't do something. Yeah. So that sounds fun. The last Alien topic of the evening, in just a few weeks, there is a crossover event from our own very Marvel comic book world, and it is the Avengers versus Aliens.
I saw
that. Thoughts on that? Tony Stark, Captain America versus xenomorphs.
Batman and Superman took on aliens versus predators about 20 years ago.
No.
How did that work out?
They did that. The Batman one was extremely well. The Batman one was extremely well because the Kubrick brothers drew that, and that was fantastic. I think also I saw like the Black Panther versus the Predator. That had me intrigued a little bit. I'm like, okay, this one might work. I think the Avengers has got this one. It's like, this is. I think while the aliens are cool and everything, the Avengers has dealt with like Thanos, the snaps, and all kind of crazy things. I think they can take the xenomorphs down. I don't think they're that much of a match, but we'll see. And actually, Scott just chimed in. I'll die first, bro. I'll die first. I can guarantee it.
Now, will Thor's hammer get destroyed by alien acid? If he punches it through an alien and it comes back to him, is it going to melt?
Well, it did break.
Is adamantium? I mean, is Wolverine's claws gonna get melted?
Now that's what I like to see is that Wolverine and an alien, Wolverine versus the aliens. Because I gotta think that if Logan's one dude that could, or maybe Deadpool Wolverine versus aliens, that probably would have been a better book.
You know what they do to just solve it for all of the nerds on this cast right now is instead of Marvel versus Capcom, it should be Marvel versus Aliens.
Yeah.
And just it would be the same game.
Yeah. Well, Big Boss is the alien queen.
I'm gonna take it another level. You do Iron Alien. So it's basically Iron Man Alien. And check this out. Robert Downey Jr. plays the character. I mean, brilliant, right?
Why not?
A variant Iron Alien? I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. I do think that Tony Stark would have an alien busting suit because he had one for the Hulk. He's kept one in there, so I've got to think that he's got to have some kind of one that's anti, acid version.
You put the skin of dead alien on the outside of his Iron Man suit.
I'm sorry. I want to make this happen because Downey Jr. plays the Alien Queen. Yes, I want to see the face hugger get Tony Stark, and then the alien bursts through his electric part and get electrocuted and kills both of them at the same time. That scene.
No, I was thinking that he had an armor, that the alien busting armor, like he had the Hulk busting armor. He would have some kind of contingency.
Or does an alien get in the Iron Man suit?
Yes.
That might be interesting. Again, it would let's put it like this. There's plenty of options. That's the good thing about it. You can write it. It's like, okay, yes, just Thor win because Thor just goes to Asgard and be like, look, Earth's gone. I'll take the Rainbow Bridge home. I'm done.
Well, I mean, we're forgetting about
his little Mario Kart and drives off.
We're forgetting about Xeno Hulk, man. Imagine that thing.
Yeah. Let's put like this: if that face hugger went through the Hulk,
could you imagine Hulk alien?
Could you imagine either a Hulk alien or a Venom xenomorph?
Both would be great, man.
Hey, we're just creating the MCU universe right now. The variant universe.
Aliens kill the MCU.
That's what it should be, bro.
They should kill the DCU. But that's another episode. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, what are you doing? Subscribe, like. Thanks for jumping in the channel this evening, talking about Alien. Please subscribe every Friday night, 7 p.m. Pacific time. Lots of other podcasts at this time. So we appreciate you all taking the time and watching us. And if you're watching us not live, but alive, but in another day and another time, we appreciate you all as well. And we couldn't do this. We couldn't do this every Friday night without some of our amazing sponsors and affiliates. First being Entertainment Earth. Love it, love it, love it. So, hey, look, it helps with Channel Go. We put all the money back into the podcast. So, look, if you're going to order stuff, pre-order stuff, if it's available on EE, use the code, man. It's just like, it's a savings for you. Why not? And then, as always, the mom and pops from day one are our first sponsor and continued sponsor, just like Entertainment Earth, the big empire, Mr. Storm. We always got to support the mom and pops. And I'm excited about this particular advertisement here.
Toys versus games.
I'm here with the man, the owner.
Tony at Toys versus Games. Versus
games.
Oh.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, gentlemen, in summation, before we talk about what's coming on the channel over the next couple of weeks, last thoughts on Alien Romulus, and all the other things of our discussion this evening.
I hope it's back to form.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I'm hoping the hype is real.
Yeah, me too. Well, all looks very promising. Check out the channel, Shadow Nose Network. Got a lot of content, exclusive podcasts, the Toybox Chronicles every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Pacific time, featuring Mr. Alexander Storm and Chet Maddox. They talk about all things toys, from G.I. Joes to Star Wars to Marvel Legends to all the things that are happening in the toy world. Hasbro, interesting dilemma again. People just don't know how to wear watches at Hasbro. For toy collectors, it is a bit frustrating. So if you haven't checked out the episode that just aired, they talk about a lot of those things. Gentlemen, anything else that's coming up on the channel for Shadow?
Yeah, I mean, I might pull old Storm into a live feed to find out if I get that Star Tours thing from
We had to do that on Monday.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Scott Solo, are you? Is Scott Solo in the chat? Because is he going to get this Star Tours thing? Because he might have the inside scoop on this thing.
Yeah,
I'm not
Scott,
sure. Scott, are you with us? He may not be. He might have signed off.
He was probably like, I'm tired.
Well, you can only take us for so long.
If anyone's going to get it, it's going to be Scott, So
I'm sure
maybe we'll jump on and do a live stream, because there is only 3,000 of them, and
it's gonna be an interesting one to see if that happens. So yeah, we'll definitely do that. And I know, if you like us on Friday nights, you're gonna like us on Wednesday nights, and I think we've got a little bit of reel for everybody else to get our good friends over at the Sarlacc Digest podcast.
Amazing. Amazing content everywhere, tons of options. Check out the Sarlacc Digest on YouTube, lots of other cool content, toy reviews, all specifically central focused on Star Wars. If you want to know Star Wars, you're a massive Star Wars fan, collector, or you just want to know more. You're trying to get back into Star Wars, your first time. I don't know if you live under a rock or not, but that's the channel to go to. And then as always, come back to us. We got a lot of other cool content. Pro wrestling's heating up again. Got lots of content from Shadow himself and Tech Master and other content to follow, including Chet's toy reviews. We appreciate you tuning in every Friday again. Thanks for being with us, and we will see you next week. This has been another episode of PPI Alien Style. See you later.